A very warm welcome to This World Game Changers podcast, where your host, Paul D. Lowe, embraces many crucial conversations that compassionately contribute towards creating a better life and world. Paul's intention is very simple: to help get people's inspirational insights and motivational messages out into the world so others may benefit.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to this World Game Changers podcast episode. I'm beginning to sound probably like a repeating broken record here when I say welcome back to a former guest. In fact, the record's definitely broken and definitely repeating when I say Rebecca Wheele. Rebecca, I am going to welcome you by saying Mom.
Thank you. Thanks for the welcome.
Abstract because let's flirt with a stereotype, listeners. Let's inject some pace, some humour, some energy into this, because actually this is the second of episodes. Is the cost of your energy rising? You remember in the first one that the previous episode, Rebecca and I kind of danced, although we didn't actually use that word, I don't think, on the podcast episode, around this topic. And we spoke off air a little bit and felt that it was, I don't know, serious is not the right word, but the energy was, I don't know. Maybe I'm judging. Rebecca, let's use this as a starting point, because we did say at the end of that episode that we'd be diving into Einstein's second quote. Just remind us as a starting point what that second quote was.
Okay, so the second quote is this: everything is energy. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality.
Right. Okay. Beautiful. Listeners, if you listen to that previous episode, I think it's pushing it to say it was quite somber. I don't think that would be the appropriate wording. And this is just my thought. So obviously Rebecca will have her own take upon this. Was it serious? Don't know. There again, you be the judge. Was it? Yeah, I don't know. But let's raise it, because what Rebecca said there, from my part, I'm certainly intending to set and raise the energy, and maybe that'll speak to that second quote. But before we do that and go on this journey, because we didn't go down any rabbit holes on the last one, before we do that, Rebecca, what's your thoughts on the previous episode?
Well, part of me is just thinking, I mean, it is what it is, and it was what it was, but also, if we're going to reflect upon it, I think the word focused comes to mind. We were focused, and maybe not serious, but I think just, that certain, I don't know, certain element of play wasn't there, perhaps, which is very important in life, isn't it? It's very important to maintain that, or maintain makes it sound like a chore, but to I guess connect with that childlike play and curiosity. And I know we've done podcasts on that in the past, so if anyone wants to dive into that topic, we do have one that we dance around that subject. But I think that was maybe our takeaway from it, is that childlike curiosity, that play, is important. That's kind of a paradox, because important feels like a serious word, but yeah.
And there's our first laugh, listeners. There is our first humorous, energetic laugh. Look at the difference, feel the difference of this podcast episode compared to the other one. And this is not deliberate, but this is having an awareness of, we have and this might sound onerous as well, but kind of responsibility in terms of the way we communicate to you, the listeners. And what message is it, and what energy are we setting out for you? That's important. So the starting point for this particular episode is not to do a debrief on whether our previous episode was good, bad, or indifferent, whether you like it, whether you don't like it. That kind of plays into it a bit, but it's certainly not about me and Rebecca. We are the proverbial messengers in this. We have a dance and invite people in to be part of that dance, that conversation, that interest,
Mm.
that energy, that attachment that people will share with us is based on how energetically we're vibrating. So if we're very somber and very solemn and very methodical, and we keep talking along these lines, it'll probably send you to sleep and you'll switch the podcast off. As opposed to, wow, let's kiss the sun and let's touch the moon. Let's jump up and down and let's sit in puddles and have ice cream fights and do whatever. Fights, oh, there's a certain energy attached to that word fight, isn't there? Rebecca, help me out here because I'm starting to go down rabbit holes.
Well, yes. I mean, what's coming up for me there is that there is a choice to be made in how we show up with our energy. And as you kind of alluded to, there's all of those energies, I think, are within us, and it's which one we choose to tap into, because we do have the more somber, low energy. There's also high energy. There's playful energy. There's I guess it's not limited by anything really. I feel like there's so many. There's infinite energies. Perhaps, I don't know. I'm thinking of it as if it was colors. We can choose the palette in which we show up with. So
doesn't that
it does
speak,
feel, yeah.
Rebecca? Please forgive me for interrupting. Doesn't that speak massively to something that we spoke about off air with Boy George, for example? And what's really interesting about that, since we spoke, something came through on my phone inviting me to a concert on next Friday night where there's a Boy George tribute band. I mean, what's the chances of that? But what we were speaking about there, if you recall, listeners, what Rebecca and I were speaking about off air was colours. And one of Boy George's records where he talks about the chameleon, red, gold, and green. Doesn't that typify us as human beings? And we do have different energy frequencies depending on what's coming to us from an external source. Are we being challenged? Are we being cut up on the road, when we're driving? And are we getting angry? Are we getting frustrated with our partner? X, Y, and Z? Our energy levels will dip. And isn't it true that we go on a journey of life? It's like being in our car. We're going to be in different gears because we can't always drive around in top gear. We can't drive around the local high street at 70 miles an hour the way we would on a motorway, for example. Different circumstances require different energies. And I think sometimes, Rebecca, I'm really interested in your own take upon this. We give ourselves a hard time because there's so much expectation that you will be the best you will be and you will vibrate at your very highest level and everything's hunky-dory. You'll be smiling 24/7. The world's a beautiful place and there's never any challenges. Any thoughts on that one?
Loads of thoughts. I feel that that's such an important topic to discuss because when that happens, there's a complete bypassing of the challenges. It's like brushing something under the carpet. That doesn't mean it goes away. It just means it festers and it builds. And, if you brush dust under the carpet, eventually it's going to infiltrate the space. I feel that, the reality of life and having that awareness to ride the waves of all of the emotions and not suppress any or not, feel guilt or shame or squash anything, because anything you squash, it doesn't go away. It just gets suppressed and then it comes up in kind of ways that we that shows up in our life in all sorts of different ways when we push something away. And something that I've experienced a lot is that when I do that, it comes back bigger and more, and so recognizing and just being real and being honoring your authentic feelings of what's actually presenting right now, rather than, I had this experience, and I think I've talked about this before with being nervous, and if I would just kind of pretend, like brush it away and just try and not feel those nerves, it would actually come up even more. Whereas if I would just accept it and embrace it and say, okay, well, the nerves are showing me something. It's it's in a way, it's showing me what I'm, where my comfort zone is, and there's lessons in that, and just embracing that actually kind of ended up dispelling it somehow. So yeah, I think it's important to stay true and real, because there's a fakeness to when we bypass and we just, everything's great, everything's wonderful. It's like, well, that is great if that's true and that's real, but if that's, if you're in that place and actually there's something else going on but you don't want to look at it, then you're not in an authentic, true place and you're avoiding. So yeah, I've definitely experienced that in my life, and I think it's an important thing to talk about.
Okay, so interesting, coincidentally, listeners, not how Boy George is coming, music, and to draw a parallel with Einstein's quote there, two words: frequency and vibration. Now they're two words that are very closely associated with music. I think that would be fair to say.
Yeah.
And, to quote Tony Robbins as well, around how much motion creates emotion. So I'm thinking, maybe with some motion in our life, we can create some emotion, which is attached to thought, which is attached to beliefs, and we can change our beliefs. Simplicity, what? Okay, that's a nice fancy theory, Paul. What do you mean? When we're feeling really down and our energy levels are low, maybe, just maybe, if we could whistle a tune, if we could get up, if we could jig about, the things that actually we feel like least doing. I've also used the example of kissing the mirror. And I've started trying this out. This has come back into my world with another group I'm involved with, and it's like, first the comments and the reactions are, Paul, shut up, I don't want to do it. Try it. And that kind of, was it Brian? No, I was going to use the Brian Tracy eat the frog in the morning kind of thing. That's a really bad example. It's a really bad example, but of doing something you don't want to do. Because we're stuck in a rut energetically. We're flat, we're angry, whatever. No, shut up, don't want to do it. Da 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 da. Yeah, go on, I dare you. And it's amazing how that can jolt us out of our stuckness, So I want to start focusing, Rebecca, if I may. Well, not focusing, because let's not let these energy levels slip. And by the way, listeners, I think one day this is a world exclusive. Rebecca and I will be doing a duet. Now, what does that look like? Well, that's another time, another place. But even that comment I knew would evoke humour from Rebecca. So this whole kind of dance that we have in life, isn't there? How do we talk to people? How do we lift people up that are feeling down? And just moving that vibration and that energy, that with that motion, moving about, dancing, singing, whistling, whatever, creates emotion. Music's a very powerful medium there, is it not, Mom?
Yeah, it really is. Really is. It's a funny one, isn't it, music? Because it's it is movement. It's movement of frequency and vibration in a certain way that is harmonizing, because there's something that there's kind of an alignment that music has with some, I don't know, I see it as this patterns, and it's in perfect alignment when they harmonize, because obviously there's all sorts of types of music. There's also music that clashes and jars, and so there is a truth there that when music is done in don't want to say the right way, but an aligned way, it sounds beautiful, it sounds wonderful, it sounds whatever it sounds, joyous, it can invoke those emotions. So it's like it's tapping into this frequency of this network of patterns somehow. That's how I kind of see it.
Does it ever sound wondrous?
It does.
Yeah, wondrous. That's a nice word, isn't it?
I like that word.
I know you do. That's why I've used
wondrous.
It. Exactly.
Yeah.
But there again, listeners, I mean, obviously Rebecca and I are recording this on video, so I could see a facial expression. I can read her energy. It's high. It's high because we're flirting, we're dancing, we're playfully exploring, prodding, poking, and hopefully you can pick that up in the tone of what's unfolding here. Notice the contrast energy wise between this and the previous episode. That's not by design. We haven't contrived this. We dived in on the previous episode, and hopefully you got something out of it, whatever that was. But the difference here, and that was a self-observation. This is about me personally taking responsibility for saying to Rebecca, my dance partner, to say, maybe we're going to lift this. And even if Rebecca said, well, I don't want to, okay, that's not my responsibility. I'm taking responsibility for me, because that's all I'm responsible for. And I am going to raise my vibration on this, and I am going to be more playful, and hopefully you'll join me. And there's no expectation whether you will or whether you won't. But isn't it true, Rebecca, that when an individual is in that more heightened vibration of energy, it does rub off on others?
Yeah. Because we're in an energy field with our, surrounding us, so that it has a ripple effect. You can walk in a room and you can sense someone's energy straight away, and you can't explain that really, but you just can. And I think that's something everyone can connect with. So I feel like if anyone's not struggling, but kind of this, if this is a new concept to someone listening, then just get a feel, just try and connect with people's energies when you're in their presence and feel what that energy is feeling to you, I guess.
Yeah. So what might be useful here, what does that word mean? What might be useful, listeners, is for me to say to Rebecca, or suggest to Rebecca even, what about if we start exploring certain songs from each other's perspectives? Because I think it's, I'm not judging this in any way, shape or form, but from my knowledge of our dance, which has been many and varied, there is probably quite a difference in our musical background, stroke taste, stroke experience, stroke. I think that makes for a really rich share of, okay, then what songs and musics really get you going, or not, as the case may be, and vice versa. And I think that would be a really good one to kind of convey to you, our listeners, to say, look, there is power and energy massively. There's vibrancy in music, whatever that may be. Any thoughts on that, Rebecca, for our listeners?
Yeah, I love that idea. And music is energy, and so that kind of continues the thread. And music, so I don't know what the word is, but it's just incredible. It's amazing how music has a part, and for me, it's such an important part in my life, like so important. I always say that word important, and it doesn't feel like the right word, but
it's wondrous. It's wondrous.
Yeah, wondrous. Yeah, it's a wondrous part in my life. Yeah. So I think that we will have very different I feel that there will be differences in the music taste and music that we're drawn to, but at the same time, I think there will be some similarities as well. So it'll be interesting to see, what we bring to the table.
So in terms of raising that vibration, raising that frequency, raising that awareness for the benefit of listeners to, not to sell them to the thought of music, not to sell you listeners to the thought of music, because listen, nobody's got the right to do that. You'll have your own thoughts around how important music is or isn't in your life, but maybe in some people's lives, and I say maybe, it's just a little bit of a sleeping giant to say, or a nice gentle reminder to say, music can lift you massively. Don't underestimate the power of, a favorite song you maybe have forgot about. And I'd love to explore that because, as you know, Rebecca, I absolutely, there's something very, very deep in me musically that I don't know what that is, but I'm certainly happy to flirt with it. I'm happy to dance with it, etc., etc. So maybe we do a kind of little mini series to follow on from this. And look at this, listeners, this podcast episode, that how some things come out of just a simple conversation. Because yet again, this wasn't contrived, and how we've landed in this place of, okay, so maybe, Rebecca, the follow on, and this is yet again a suggestion, and such is the honesty and the rawness and the authenticity that we share, that I know you'll say, no, I'm sorry, I don't want to do that. Okay, that's fine. But maybe on the next episode, we interview each other around, okay, so tell me about your favorite music. Tell me about your favorite song. Why does that particular one have such meaning to you? And what kind of energy does it evoke within you? Does it take you down? Does it raise you up? Maybe that's a good process for us to start, on the next, a natural progression from Einstein to music. I mean, there's a good title, From Einstein to Music.
Brilliant. I love it. Good idea. Yeah.
And on that creative, thoughtful note, I'm going to hand over to the lady to offer any summary thoughts, remarks, questions, anything at all, Rebecca, to close out.
Just what a colourful and melodic podcast. And I'm looking forward to exploring, music, and I think that that's something everyone can relate to and connect with. So and really looking at how music helps us. I think music, is so profound. It's so profound, and maybe it is an untapped thing in our world, and it has more potential for actually helping and healing and having a massive impact in people's lives. So watch this space.
You've just stole my thunder. Watch this space indeed. On that tuneful note, listeners, we'll close it out there. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope it's raised something within you, whatever that may be. Either way, I'm going to close out now. I'm going to bring the concert to an end by saying, remember, the world's changing. How will you respond?
Thanks very much for listening to this World Game Changers podcast episode. Hopefully you found it interesting and helpful. Drop a line to Paul at worldgamechangers.org with any thoughts or questions you may have, and he'll be more than happy to respond. Remember, the world's changing. How will you respond?